All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience in us starting a little bit late at this formal meeting. There were some things in the closed session that needed to continue to be discussed. But I want to welcome everyone to today's Salt Lake City Council formal meeting. The City Council has returned to virtual public meetings to help reduce the transmission of COVID-19 due to the rate of COVID-19 cases in the city and elsewhere. This change in meeting attendance is a precautionary measure for the safety of the public and city employees, and is based on the latest reports from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Excuse me. We are continuing to monitor the situation in advance of each meeting, and the council will return with hybrid or in-person meetings when appropriate. We are truly grateful for the public's patience, but most importantly, we are glad that you are joining us today. I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Rogers announced his resignation as of yesterday, and so he is not with us at today's meeting. We are so thankful for his service to the city and to District 1. Because of his resignation, while we do have an election on November 2nd, There are still 2 months left on 3 months currently left in his term. Under state law and city ordinance, we have to fill that seat within 30 days. And so we are looking for applicants to fill that seat for the rest of his term. If you are interested in applying for this seat and the process by which we go through, please visit the council's website at www.slc.gov/council. Thank you. We will begin with a moment of silence as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. When we are done, we will turn our audio back on. For the public comment opportunities today, we are accepting your comments through WebEx. And for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, and efficient way. These help us move through the agenda and give everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the very moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. The Council respects all points of view and we welcome new insights. While giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. If you use profanity during your comment, your line will be muted. And if any comments reach a level of disrespect, I will ask that you be muted and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line. In addition, our staff will request for your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name doesn't meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Isaac Canedo from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with the attendees to coordinate on any questions with your commenting registration. Staff is handling a number of tasks, so please limit messages to technical issues and minimal changes to your registration. If you'd like to send any comments to the City Council, please feel free to do so. You can mail us at P.O. Box 145-476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can email us at council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call us at 801-535-7654. Next, we will move to item A4, to consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall declaring November as Native American Heritage Month in Salt Lake City. I will turn the time over to Councilmember Dugan to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joint resolution declaring November 2021 Native American Heritage Month in Salt Lake City. Whereas Salt Lake City is built on the homelands of the Northwestern Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, Ute tribes, and their respective bands who have called the Salt Lake Valley and the Wasatch Range home and have been stewards of the land for thousands of years. And whereas Native Americans residing within Salt Lake City are a unique and diverse population representing many tribal nations and their cultural values, celebrations, and achievements. And whereas Native Americans have contributed to the prosperity of Salt Lake City through treaties, resources, land, stewardship, culture, traditions, and commerce. And whereas we honor and celebrate the importance of Native Americans and their immeasurable contributions to our city and to our society as distinguished scholars, veterans, teachers, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders, and more. And whereas we strive to improve communications with, services to, and partnership with all city residents as we journey together on a quest for justice, equality, respect, and prosperity. Now therefore be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City declare the month of November 2021 as Native American Heritage Month, adopted this 5th day of October 2021, signed Mayor Aaron Mendenhall, Chair Amy Fowler, and the other council members.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros,
I said yes. Can you hear me?
now we can.
Okay.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That passes unanimously. I see that Commissioner Samantha Eldridge is with us. Thank you, Commissioner Eldridge, for being with us. I'd love to turn the time over to you if you'd like to say anything.
Hi, good evening. Thank you to Mayor Mendenhall, Salt Lake City Council, and our coalition of leaders joining us today who are representing Indigenous students in the Salt Lake City School District. I would like to acknowledge Orville Cayedito, Lorne Pinnacus, Brooke Miller, Dana Yazzie, Donna Eldridge, Sahar Kejanori. These community leaders work with students in K through 12 and higher ed and work to increase visibility and give voice to our Indigenous youth. Thank you for your work in supporting the resolution. I would like to give the remaining time to Sahar Kajanori to say a few words on behalf of the coalition.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, good evening. My name is Sorry. So this upcoming Monday, Salt Lake City and numerous states, cities, and campuses across the U.S. Will be honoring Indigenous Peoples Day either in place of or in addition to Columbus Day. So this is a holiday to recognize the original stewards of the land and honors their culture, history, and identity as Indigenous peoples. So this holiday is intended to serve, to celebrate and create a dialogue for all citizens, as not to forget our history, but also to build our future. So these Indigenous Peoples Day designations are part of a larger movement to offer an accurate account of Indigenous peoples and will serve as a standard to highlight Indigenous peoples in our communities. There have been many people who have worked tirelessly to make this happen within our home state here, home state of Utah. So I would like to thank everybody for your contributions and to recognize the Confederated Tribes of Goshute, Paiute Indian Tribe of Utah, Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation, Skull Valley Band of Goshute, Ute Indian Tribe of Uinta Array Reservation, the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe, the Ute Mountain White Mesa Community, and the Diné or Navajo Nation. Thank you, City Hall, council members, commissioners, our Indigenous youth, and the state of Utah.
Thank you so much for being here and for your words. Excellent resolution. Thank you. And don't go anywhere because we have our next agenda item is another joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall declaring the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City. And I will turn the time over to Councilmember Mono to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joint resolution declaring the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City. Whereas Salt Lake City recognizes the city is built upon homelands of the Indigenous peoples of this region, whose histories are entwined with the settlement of Salt Lake City, and whereas Salt Lake City values Indigenous peoples' contributions to our community, including their knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural influence that substantially shaped the character of Salt Lake City, and whereas Salt Lake City has a responsibility to oppose the systematic discrimination toward Indigenous people in the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disproportionate health, education, and social crises. And whereas Salt Lake City promotes closing the equity gap for Indigenous peoples by supporting policies and practices that ensure greater access and opportunity and honor our nation's Indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And whereas Salt Lake City established its Human Rights Commission in 2005, committing itself to protect, respect, and fulfill the full range of inherent human rights for all as set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and numerous other international human rights treaties. And whereas Indigenous communities and tribes in Utah recognize the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day and called upon the city to officially celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day in order to promote tolerance, understanding, and friendship, and to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination stemming from colonization. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City strongly support that Indigenous Peoples Day shall be an opportunity to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the Indigenous peoples of our region. Be it further resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City strongly encourage Salt Lake City Public Schools to teach about the culture, government, and history of Indigenous peoples on this day and encourage residents, businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. Be it further resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City firmly commit to continue its efforts to promote the well-being and growth of Salt Lake City's American Indian and Indigenous community and declares the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City.
Thank you, Councilmember Mono. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Mono. I will roll call this. Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Valdemoros. And I'm a yes, that passes unanimously. And I want again to thank Commissioner Eldridge for being here, for the leaders in Salt Lake City School District representing our Indigenous students for being here. And if there's anyone else that would like to say a few words from those lovely leaders that are here representing our Indigenous communities, I would love to turn the time over to them at this time. And if not, that's okay too. Well, thank you all for being here. And I look forward to celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. So thank you so much. And with that, we will move on. Thank you. Council members, we are on to our public hearings. Items B1 through B7 will be heard as one public hearing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Taylor Hill on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open public comments, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will say your name, unmute your line, and you may begin. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, please refer to the chat screen. Our staff will get your contact information and post our contact information so you can reach out to us. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please let us know you are just here to listen. Our first public hearing combines items B1 through B7 involving grant applications as one hearing. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction. Sylvia, the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, as mentioned, there are 7 grants. The first is the 2020 HOPWA Competitive Grant, Housing as Intervention to Fight AIDS. If awarded, grant monies will be used to fund housing services for individuals with HIV/AIDS who are homeless, with co-occurring illnesses at high risk of housing instability and interruption in health care. Second is the 2022 Jurisdictions with Halfway House and Parole Centers Grant. It will fund police overtime for law enforcement operations related to reducing criminal activities such as targeted enforcement operations and increased patrol response, as well as the purchase of camera units. Third is the 2021 Community Policing Development De-Escalation Training Grant. And if awarded, the grant will be used to fund the police department's de-escalation training program, which provides first responder officers with tools, skills, and options needed to successfully and safely diffuse critical incidents involving individuals who might be behaving erratically and perhaps dangerously, but do not have a firearm. Fourth is the 2021 Emergency Management Program Grant, which, if awarded, would be used to support emergency management functions and programs. Fifth is the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program local solicitation, which, if awarded, would fund the purchase of a tactical robot, less lethal shotguns and rounds, travel and training for sworn and civilian staff, throw phone enhancements, a crime lab laptop, crime lab vest carriers, community policing overtime, law enforcement software, and subawards to Salt Lake County and Unified Police Department. Sixth is the Love Your Block Justice for the Jordan River Grant Fellowship, which would connect mayor's offices with communities and residents to revitalize neighborhoods. Community groups will be invited to identify projects and receive mini grants in support of solutions in the neighborhoods adjacent to the Jordan River in Glendale. Seventh is the Child and Adult Care Program Youth City Snacks, which would provide reimbursement to the city for providing snacks to Youth City participants during the 2021 school year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, we can start with our first comments, please.
Council Chair, it looks like we have 2 people here to speak to this item, the first of which will be Nigel Swaby and then George Chapman. Nigel, you're now unmuted.
Thank you very much, Council. Good evening. I am here to support item number 6, specifically the grant application for Love Your Block, particularly around the Jordan River. Currently, there is a neighbor within my community that has done some fix-up in an otherwise unkempt area, and I would love to see more of that happening, especially in District 2 along the Jordan River. So I urge you to support this.
All right, and next we will hear from George Chapman. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay, good evening. Because out of all these grant applications, we still are not seeing any grant applications for park cameras or mobile cop cams, trailers, the $40,000 trailers, and they're really, really desperately needed. They can be not just useful for putting in high crime areas, but they can be used for traffic calming, not just for ticketing, but for recording unsafe operation and criminal behavior. This is the next best thing to an officer, a police officer like Jonathan mentioned earlier, actually slowing down traffic. If you don't have a police officer, if you have a camera, you can slow down traffic. But this is ridiculous. cameras are really, really important, and they would help neighbors see that the police are trying, especially on all the park crime people that are calling. Neighbors don't call when they don't see any response coming. And if you put in a grant application for cameras in the parks, that would help a lot, I think. So I need to emphasize it shouldn't take 100 calls a day to report every drug deal in a park that families would like to fit in. I want to see a grant application for a lot of park cameras to help stop the constant drug dealing and abuse. And we shouldn't have reports like Pioneer Park ever. So I want to see a grant application for park cameras. Those are my comments.
And that was our final comment for these items.
Great, thank you. P.S. by the way, I love the new timer on the screen. That's fun. Sorry. Let's see. Thank you to everyone who made a comment. I will look for a motion on these items.
Madam Chair, I move that the
Yes.
council close the public hearing and refer item B1 through B7 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Ferris. I will roll call this. Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
And I am a yes. And that is passes unanimously. Sorry. We are moving on to agenda item number 8, which is a grant application that I will first ask Councilmember Ferris to recuse himself.
Yes, please. Due to my employment with VOA, I'd like to recuse myself. Thank you.
And then I will turn the time over to Sylvia Richards again for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 8th grant is the 2022 Homeless Shelter Cities Mitigation Grant, which would provide funding for 3 new downtown ambassadors for the homeless resource center areas, King, Miller, and Youth. Thank you.
Okay, we can start with any comments.
It looks like we have 2 people here to speak to this item. The first will be George Chapman, and then the second will be Nigel Swaby. George, you're unmuted.
Oh boy. Okay, first of all, we don't need ambassadors to replace the need for police around the shelters. This city promised police around the shelters. We need the police to discourage drug use and abuse and dealing. Look at the call logs, the calls for service. You can't have a downtown ambassador going for calls for service. That doesn't work. We need police. And this is a really poor idea that ambassadors are going to replace police. They can't. We shouldn't be looking the other way when this happens. And by the way, why is the DEA providing the only drug dog at the shelters when the follow-up audit recommended them? Our dogs are being wasted, and change the police procedures to make it clear dogs are not to be used on or to intimidate unarmed civilians. But the bottom line, important information you should take from this is ambassadors are not able to replace police officers. Please, we need more police officers around the shelters. You promised it, and the calls for service are going through the roof around the shelters and the VOA detox center too. So we need more police, not downtown ambassadors. Those are my comments.
All right, and next we will hear from Nigel Swaby. Nigel, you're now unmuted.
Thank you, and good evening, council. Again, I should have made these comments in my previous one, but I kind of forgot. So I am in support of the ambassadors, and there's a couple of reasons. We are in a crisis situation when it comes to crime and homelessness in the city. And even though I support the police, we're going to be able to get ambassadors out on the street a lot sooner than we will police. It's 2 weeks to get one of them up and running. It's 9 months at the very minimum to get a police officer on the street. When ambassadors call in for police for backup, they get it top priority because they have the training that they need in order to know what's something that can be de-escalated and what can't. And they also provide services to the people out on the streets. Being uniformed, whether it's a police uniform or the yellow shirts that they wear, it sends a signal to the criminal element to stay away, and it also sends a welcoming gesture to those who are experiencing homelessness on the street. I would love to see the pay scale for the ambassadors to go up, because the entry-level ambassador pay is $13 an hour. If we increase that to 17, then we can actually get social workers in training or even trained social workers to take the job. It will be easier for them to do it that way because the pay will be more competitive. So I definitely support this program and hope that you're willing to raise the pay scale on it as well. Thank you.
And that was our last comment for this item.
Thank you to both who commented and council members. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing and refer item B8 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros,
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
and I am a yes, and that is unanimous with Councilmember Ferris having recused himself. And I will wait to move to B9 until Councilmember Ferris rejoins us. Thank you, Councilmember Ferris. Our next public hearing item is B9. It is regarding a potential ordinance rezone and master plan amendment at 554 and 560 South, 300 East. And before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Nick Tarbin, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction. Nick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, this is a rezone at the aforementioned properties from RO, which is residential office, to RMU, residential mixed use. It would also amend the Central Community Master Plan future land use map from residential office mixed use to high mixed use. The proposed amendments are intended to allow retail service uses on the property.
Thank you, Nick. Taylor, we can start with comments.
Council Chair, it looks like we have one person here to speak to this item, and that will be Lawrence Ford. Lawrence, you're now unmuted.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. I don't have an issue with rezoning. I would just ask that as we consider the master plan, second order effects for the residents of the area be continually considered. For example, parking or access during construction. We've got folks who live on the east side of 30s, the north side of 6 South, and especially Belden and Stanton Avenues. My concern is if we increase the amount of motor traffic or residents in the area without increasing parking, or having permits for folks already living there, we could negatively impact the folks who are current residents and make the area less desirable overall. I don't have a preference in terms of solution. I would just ask that the council and the administration keep this as a consideration when they plan. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will look for a motion on this.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. Our fourth public hearing item is item B10 regarding another rezone and master plan amendment at 461 South 400 East. I will turn the time over to Brian Fulmer, another council staff policy analyst, for our introduction. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to amend the Central Community Master Plan and so for the property you mentioned. It's current RMU 45, which is residential mixed use, to TSA UNC, Transit Station Area Urban Neighborhood Core, to accommodate redevelopment of the property and live work.
Thank you. I think Brian froze. Did he freeze for anyone? But okay, sorry, Brian, you froze a little bit. I think you are done with your introduction. So I will ask Taylor to start with our comments.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
We can. Sort of. Brian, I think that I'm assuming you were done with your introduction, so I'll start with comments. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we have one person here to speak to this item, and that will be Henricus Mink. Henricus, you're now unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, this is Henry. I live close to the property and I'm all in favor for more density in our neighborhood. Just the only side comment is that I would like to see when they build something there, that it doesn't have like the parking on the lower level, but that the ground level really is representing like a restaurant, retail, that it's really useful for the people living in the neighborhood and not another building with just ground floor parkings and lease offices and gyms, because that's not helpful to our neighborhood, because I've seen the other projects on the other side, the citizen is not having all this, and I'm a bit disappointed in that. Hence, I'm reaching out to this change. So thank you.
Sorry, was
Madam
that
Chair?
comment, Taylor?
Yes, that was our last comment for that item.
Thank you. Council members, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could I have a moment of personal privilege and just ask staff to send me a message to see with that last commenter if what he was saying is allowed, and maybe reach out to the commenter, because I agree with that and I'd like to get a little bit of clarification on that comment.
Sure. Thank you. With that, council members, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll call. Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. We are on B12, which is an ordinance that would vacate a portion of city-owned alley situated adjacent to properties located at 968 East Elm Avenue, 974 East Elm Avenue, 980 East Elm Avenue, and 2188 South 1000 East. And I'll turn the time over to Brian before comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we have the rezone and master plan amendment at 461 South, 400 East. I'm sorry, the 203 East, 2100 South, 221 East, 2100 South, and 1991 South, 200 East item before the Elm Avenue.
You are correct. We are actually on item B11. So I apologize for the confusion. I sometimes scroll down a little too much on my agenda. So Brian, if you will give us an introduction to B11.
Okay, thank you. This is a proposal to amend the central community future land use map and zoning map for the properties mentioned from their current RMF 45 zoning to FBUN 2 form-based urban neighborhood district zoning. This development is proposed for this site, and that's my introduction.
Thank you, Brian. Taylor, do we have comments here?
Council Chair, it looks like we have 5 people here to speak to this item. The first of which will be Danielle Graham, followed by Aaron Haga, and then Christopher Lee. Danielle, you're now unmuted.
Hi, thank you. It's Danielle Granahan. And my husband and I live on Rosewood Avenue, directly behind this property. We're both very torn about this rezoning. On the one hand, commercial property that could make this neighborhood more walkable would be a welcome addition and worth the added inconvenience of more cars parked on the street. On the other hand, this area is not set up for the overflow parking that will be created, probably a reason the current zoning exists. This rezoning will create an overflow parking issue for our street and those around us. However, the potential benefit of commercial space is fully dependent on the types of businesses there. There are no guarantees on who will be renting that commercial space and the benefit to the neighborhood, so we can only hope, and we are very hopeful. In terms of the parking, there are no parking signs all along the east side of 200 East, making Rosewood the first available parking area in that direction. Our street cannot accommodate two-way traffic with cars along both sides. Also, trash collection with multiple bins cannot be accommodated with cars along both sides. Additionally, like so many neighborhoods around here that rely on street parking, those parked cars are easy targets for crime. We had an issue with a car parked in front of our own house just a couple weeks ago. And our street currently only has one street light. So my question to the council is, could our street become a one-way if this is approved? Could there be investments in things like no parking signs for trash collection and better street lighting? I don't expect immediate responses to these concerns, but would like follow-up on these items if the rezoning is approved. In terms of a less car-reliant city and the current public transit we have in this area, I've emailed my full comments to the City Council and copied in Councilmember Mano. Thank you for your consideration.
And next we will hear from Aaron Haga, followed by Christopher Lee, and then George Chapman. Aaron, you are now unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that comment. I couldn't agree more. I want to make sure that the development that we do there with this rezone enhances and beautifies the area, makes it more walkable, less reliant upon cars, and also that we don't build something that creates a greater parking problem. That's absolutely necessary. And so with the important thing to remember, what we're trying to do with this is truly make it more of a community feel with some type of a cafe or something like that on that main level, and make it so people can have better access and more walkability within that area, especially with the fact that we have transit so close. And I think there's also a need for, rather than, $2,000 apartments, we need affordable housing and affordable apartments, which is one of the main reasons I think this zoning plan works for this. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Christopher Lee, followed by George Chapman, and then Joseph Darger. Christopher, you're now unmuted. Okay, we will come back to Christopher and move on to George. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay, this is ridiculous. No parking. Come on. I agree with the last two. Surveys say that are going to be using cars, and all of a sudden into the neighborhood. It's a flagrant misuse of the form-based zoning that was supposed to be next to transit station. I mean, this area is a stable family home neighborhood, and trying to inundate those homes, stable homes, with parking from adjacent disrespectful apartments with no on-site parking is just going to create a lot of hate and discontent. It's going to make the city look bad. It's going to make the city look like it doesn't know what it's doing. Most people aren't to or can't walk more, they drive. So I'm asking to approve this bastardization of the form. I like form-based zoning, but this is not the place for it. You should be throwing this out the window. Thanks for listening.
All right, and next we will move on to Joseph Darker. Joseph, you're now unmuted.
Yes, as an adjacent property owner to Mr. Haga, and someone who's passionate about affordable housing, I think this form-based zoning is the perfect place for it. It is close to tracks and public housing, and so I'm speaking in favor for this form-based zoning. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, and we will go back to Christopher Lee once more and see if it works this time. Christopher, you're now unmuted. Okay, well, Christopher, we will welcome your comments via email, and I will put the email in the chat. And Council Chair, that was our last comment.
Great, thank you. And Christopher, please reach out to us via chat or email, email or call. Thank you for everyone who commented, and I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Mono. Roll call. Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
I am a yes. That passes unanimously. Now we are on to B12, which is the ordinance that would vacate a portion of city-owned alley situated near Elm Avenue. I will turn the time over to Brian Fulmer for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This proposal is to vacate the east-west city-owned alley between approximately 968 East Elm Avenue and 10th East. There are two unpermitted structures on the east and west ends of the alley blocking its use. If approved by the council, it may be possible to legalize those existing structures, but that would be a separate process not involving the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. And Taylor, we'll start with comments.
All right, Council Chair, we have about 10 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Amy Horman, followed by Trent Tobler, and then Jonas Sappington. Amy, you're now unmuted.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Amy Horman. I'm a neighbor of the Sappingtons. I've lived in the neighborhood since 2017, and we've had the pleasure of raising our kids together. We've bike pooled our kids to school at Nibley Park. My kids have taken dance classes with Horman, and we've just really loved living in our little sugar house neighborhood. I'd like to speak in support of the partial alley vacation on Elm Avenue. The alley is not utilized as a through alley. We have the S line right there, and we have Elm Avenue as well. But the alley is open from 900 to Elm, or to, I guess it's Windsor? Anyway, and it's closed after that. The petition just really makes legal what's already there and allows people to improve the shed structures and et cetera that are there already. Utah Power will access their utility the way they always have, and I can't see any reason against it. The alley heading west is open, but the redevelopment of the Fisher bike shop and the printer, I expect will be, you know, more apartments in Sugar House, more housing. So there's really no reason for this alley to be not vacated. So anyway, thanks. And it's good to see neighbors and friends who are here to give their input, and thank you for your time.
All right, next we will hear from Trent Toller and then Jonas Sappington and then Joseph Tungi. Trent, you're now unmuted.
Okay, thank you. As I said, my name is Trent Toller. I own the property on the south side of the alley. It's the 2188 property. I'm probably pretty much going to reiterate what pretty much everyone's going to say, but I'll go ahead and do that. When we and others in this area bought these various properties over the years, we all assumed this was done decades ago, as there's no sign of the alleyway left. It's not as if, you know, us recent landowners have suddenly encroached into a functional alleyway. I mean, this has been gone for decades, but I understand the city may have other views on it. But also, what concerns me is the public value. If it were to be replaced, the city were to have to spend the money, I don't know, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to bulldoze and completely there's no sign of the alleyway at all left. They have to completely rebuild it. And for what public value, with Elm Avenue, one property to the north, and the big Parley Trail, a couple properties to the south, I don't really see its function as a bike path, or you know, there's plenty of better options. So I don't really see how that would be of great public value. As the other commenter suggested, there's no utility access problem. I've been there several times when Rocky Mountain Power's there. They can drive right up to the poles on concrete or pavement, and they've had no issues there. So I'm, as I said, I'm fully in support of this. I don't think this will be a loss to the city at all by, you know, just simply, you know, putting formality to what's already has existed there for decades. So I think that's it. Thanks.
All right, and next we will hear from Jonas Sappington, followed by Joseph Tung, and then Julie McAdams. Jonas, you're unmuted.
Hi, I'll just be brief. My wife and I are here today, Hanum and Jonas Sappington. And we just want to reiterate that we kind of designed this application to be for the good of ourselves as well as for our neighbors and the community. And we want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting this. That's all.
All right, and next we will hear from Joseph Tung, followed by Julie McAdams, and then Forrest Good. Joseph, you're now unmuted.
Thank you. I also live on the block just north of Trent and east of Jonas and Hanum. And yeah, this definitely is, for us, it's a major safety issue, as that's been spoken about with others. But we have a small daughter, and we just would feel like it wouldn't be appropriate to have her outside if it was a true through alleyway. It just, you know, with the city growing around us and getting taller, It does come with some negative activities that happen in these alleyways. We've had several fires in the past, recent past, and plenty of calling police departments. We have, we've reached out to the police department. They have backed this. And we've also reached out to Rocky Mountain Power just to get some actual, written formality statements, and they've said that they have full access as well. So we, like Trent said, this has been there for decades, and we really hope that we can just keep it as is. Thank you so much.
All right, and now we will hear from Julie McAdams, followed by Forrest Good, and then George Chapman. Julie, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you.
Uh-oh, Julie, you cut out. So I don't know if that was your internet or our muting or something, but let's stop the timer and redo and get Julie back on the line.
Okay, we'll troubleshoot with Julie and move on to Forrest Good. Forrest, you are unmuted.
Great, thanks. Also a neighbor in the neighborhood. I actually live on a property that used to have the continuation of that alley that was vacated, I think in the 50s. Just wanted to reiterate from just my observations of what I've seen over the last few months with the current alley that's in question. I've actually reported to police several drug users in front of everybody using in that alley. So just wanted to share my input. I am in support of the vacation. Thank you.
Okay, and we will move on to George Chapman, who will be followed by Danny Tremblay and then Kimberly Colton. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, I appear to agree with everyone on this. The alleyway vacation should happen. This is a constant complaint about alleyways that are public property, and often, especially in that area, concentrate criminal behavior like drug abuse and dealing and opening and discarding of stolen Amazon packages. I walk the area a lot. So I agree, drug use is visible in those alleyways. This city should have a department to be responsible for alleyway problem identification and solutions, whether it's cleanup, increased police patrol, or closing. If this city can't solve the issues in these alleyways, whether it's criminal or other issues, the city should set up a path to close the alleyway. If there is, of course, if there's no easement or utilities needed. It shouldn't be hit or miss, and it is taking up way too much time of this council. The city should have a group of people, 1 or 2 people that are actually helping residents on this issue. Those are my comments.
All right, and we will move on to Danny Tremblay, followed by Kimberly Colton, and then Abraham Smith. Danny, you're unmuted.
Good evening. My wife and I own 2 properties right tucked up against this proposed alleyway closure. So we are on Elm Avenue at 932 Elm and 940 Elm. So that is we back up against the portion of the alley that is not in contention, but it's an extension. It's the portion that leads from Lincoln to 9th East. My wife and I are absolutely in support of this proposal for all of the reasons that have been discussed. I won't belabor them. I will add that just a point of observation that the alley was probably created so that the few residents that live on Elm could access the back of their property. Considering how the neighborhood has developed over time, there is no need for that alley to access our properties. Everyone has driveways that give onto Elm Avenue all along that area. So it's not like we need the alley to access a garage at the back. Like I said, I have 2 properties on that alley and we've never used it. It's fenced off. I would also like for everyone to possibly consider that the whole alley has no use, and once the building is built at the proposed apartment is built on 9th East, that section also will have no use. So the whole alley essentially makes no sense. Thank you.
Okay, and now we will hear from Kimberly Colton, followed by Abraham Smith, and then Julie McAdams. Kimberly, you're unmuted.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. Just to reiterate what the other supporters have said, I am very in favor of the partial alley vacation, making legal to those owners and residents what is already there. I know that there may be some alleys in the city that are positive to the neighborhood, but as someone who abuts the alley on Lincoln, this is definitely a problem alley. It attracts crime. We can see drug deals, syringes, stolen items stashed, garbage left. I've witnessed myself public urination. The fires, 3 that I've seen as a result of people using that alley and finding places to try to stay, and tents that have been erected in the alley. And my daughter, who was followed home from school from the bus as she walked down the alley by someone. It's just not we have alternatives on Elm Street for people that want to take a walk, and the S line as well. So I think the positives of this partial vacation definitely outweigh any negatives. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Okay, and now we will hear from Abraham Smith, followed by Julie Adams. Abraham, you're now unmuted.
Thanks very much, and good evening, everybody. I also am in support of the closure over on the side behind the Sappingtons, and as Danny and my wife indicated, we own the property that's the entire south side of the alley between 900 East and Lincoln, and as my wife said, it doesn't seem it's not been actively maintained for a long time. We've had our house broken into from that side. We've again had 3 fires, folks stealing stuff from our porch, from our shed, from under the house, drug deals. And as Danny said, as this construction happens over on the far west side of that full alley, we'd really be looking to have that whole alley vacated. So violently in support of the partial vacation over behind the Sappingtons, and would be supportive of vacating the entire thing. Thanks.
All right, and we will try Julie McAdams once more. Julie, you're unmuted.
Hi, are you able to hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize for before. My name's Julie McAdams. I'm also a neighbor on the street east of the Sappingtons, running north and south. And like the others who have spoken, I'm also in support of the partial vacation and see no downsides to doing it, only increased safety and ownership by property owners around here of caring for the otherwise vacant space. And so I support this and appreciate the time that you are all taking to consider this application. Thanks.
Okay, and that was our last comment for this item.
Thank you so much to everybody who came out and commented on this item. Council members, I'd like to take just a moment of personal privilege at this time. This alleyway is not far from my house, and went on a lovely walk with Coffee and Amy Horman and the Sappingtons to look at the alleyway. Two things I'd like to just point out for your consideration as you're thinking about this is that, as one of the commenters mentioned, part of the alley was vacated back, I think, in the 50s. And I think there was an understanding that the whole area was vacated, but turns out it wasn't, which is why there are permanent structures on the alley we're on the piece of property that we're looking at right now. So the intent, and I could be wrong on this, but I think I'm pretty right on this, is that I think the intent was to vacate it back in the 50s, and then there was misunderstanding, or it didn't get recorded, or something happened, and so we're sort of here where we're at now. And the second thing is that, as many of the commenters mentioned, we have the S line literally 3 houses away from this alley. So the purpose of what we look at alleys for is thoroughfares and other ways to really engage in our city is already being done by the S line. So just something to consider as we look at this. I know that there's always some strong feelings about alley vacations, and I think that we do need to have a policy discussion on this and our alley vacations. But if the policy were to be, let's look at each alley individually, this is one that is not, that I encourage you to kind of look at what our commenters have said in that sense. So with that, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Mono. Roll call. Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. Council members, we need to go back to agenda item number 8 for reconsideration on this motion, on that grant. And I will ask Councilmember Ferris to recuse himself.
I am hereby recused.
Council members, we are looking to reconsider and adopt the grant application for agenda item number 8.
Madam Chair, having voted on the prevailing side, I'd like to change my vote on this.
I think we have to procedurally have to do a motion to reconsider, vote on that, and then a second motion of what the reconsideration is.
Correct. So yes, I am moving to reconsider.
Second.
I have a motion to reconsider by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Roll call. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
And I am a yes, with Councilmember Ferris being recused. So that passes unanimously. With that, I would look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the funding proposal tonight.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember, who did I miss?
Me.
Mana.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That is unanimous, with Councilmember Ferris being recused. Cindy Lou, did we do that accurately for everyone's records?
Thank you. Yes, you have.
Perfect. We can invite Councilmember Ferris back into our meeting, please.
I am here.
Like the chair is having trouble with her connection. I don't know if we want to give it a minute. I know WebEx has been having some glitches tonight with other people.
She does have the triangle. Maybe because we can't predict what's happening on the internet, perhaps the vice chair elect, who's also the senior member, could take over.
Yes. Oh. Okay, sorry. I thought I saw that maybe the chair was coming back in. So, okay. That brings us to section C of the agenda, correct?
Yes, you are on section C.
Okay. And that was potential action items. We have no new action items. That brings us to part D of the agenda, which is questions from the council to the mayor. Mayor Mendenhall, thank you as always for being here with us in today's meeting. Does anybody have any questions for the mayor? That is a very Utah backdrop you have, Mayor. Okay. Let's move on to the general comment portion of tonight's meeting. Let's see. This is the opportunity for anyone present at the meeting to make general comments on any items not scheduled for a public hearing tonight. The chair went over the rules of decorum earlier, and those rules apply here as well. We are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff is monitoring a separate telephone line. Isaac Canedo from our office is still helping moderate the meeting and can assist with attendees if you need to coordinate. And Taylor Hill on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting their lines. Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can be prepared to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will say your name, unmute your line, and you may begin. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please refer to the chat screen. Our staff will post contact information to try and help you. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff and let them know or let us know when you're unmuted that you're just here to listen. Taylor, you can go ahead and start with our first general comment. Welcome back, Madam Chair. Just went over the rules.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so it looks like we have about 6 people here to speak for general comment. The first of which will be Alice McHugh, followed by Tessie King, and then Polly Hart. Alice, you're now unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Alice McHugh, and I'm a resident of Anna Valdemoros' district. First, as part of a coalition of citizens deeply opposed to the inland port, I want to thank the mayor and the city council for the letter to the Utah Inland Port Authority Board questioning their proposed public infrastructure district. As you know, that caused UAPA to cancel their planned board meeting on September 20th to vote on the proposal and to set up an informational webinar to, quote, explain the merits of the proposed bonding authority. So thank you. Did you attend the webinar? Jill Flaguer and 4 consultants handled selected written questions. Altogether, their answers basically were, we are planning lots of lovely things, childcare, community kitchen, fueling station, but nothing is definite, except that Salt Lake City taxpayers will pay for a transloading facility. No details, not even who would own the facility, but it is a, quote, must-have to ensure optimal profits for the property owners who are holding Jack Hedges' feet to the fire. That means your constituents will be paying approximately $255 million in tax increment funds over 35 years for a facility that will be obsolete in just a few years as electric trucks replace rail as the most cost-effective long-haul transport. The PID will come up for vote again on October 11th. What are you, the Salt Lake City Council, going to do to stop this abuse of Salt Lake City taxpayers?
Okay, and now we will hear from Tussie King, followed by Polly Hart, and then Cindy Cromer. Tussie, you are now unmuted.
Hi, my name is Tussie King, and can you hear me? Okay, and I am a lifelong Salt Laker, and I live in District 7. And tonight I'd like to address my concerns about the Utah Inland Port, and more specifically, what's going on right now with the Utah Inland Port Board. As Alice McHugh just mentioned, we call it UIPA, as it's often referred to. I've been following this situation for quite a few years because I am very concerned and opposed to the port for all the reasons that you already know about. I believe, unfortunately, that UIPA is not being held accountable to the public in any way whatsoever. As Thomas Paine once said, a body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. The only reason the vote was not taken on their current plan to create this public infrastructure district was due to the letter that was so eloquently written by the council and the mayor regarding specific questions about who's going to be on the port's council. We have to have people from Salt Lake City on that, and apparently right now there is no one from Salt Lake City. At this time, I've tried multiple times to talk at Zoom meetings. I only had one chance out of 4 with the Utah Inland Port, because they will not allow you unless you raise your hand right at the right time to even speak. They're terribly not transparent. They're not accountable. And I would ask you that you look very carefully before any of our taxpayer money goes towards anything further with them. They're pushing this through way too fast. Thank you.
All right, and now we will hear from Polly Hart, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Donna Eldridge. Polly, you're now unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Polly Hart. Hi, my name is Polly Hart, and I live in Salt Lake City District 3. I know all of you, or most of you. And people get up and always complain about things, and they want you to change things. And I thought for a change tonight, I would just say thank you so much for all that you do. You guys are wonderful, and I'm speaking to the council and the council staff and the mayor and the mayor's staff. You guys just do a phenomenal job, and I want you to all give yourselves a pat on the back, and that's all. That's it. You guys are just fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, and now we will hear from Cindy Cromer, followed by Donna Eldridge, and then George Chapman.
This is hi everybody.
Hi. Almost 8 years ago, I first encountered James Rogers. He was accepting the position of the city council member for District 1. I was in the audience listening for hints about what we had in common. Councilmember Rogers' remarks that day involved a great deal of flag waving. I was concerned. How was I ever going to find common ground with someone who waved the flag that much? I didn't have to wait long before James moved into leadership roles. Once he was running the meetings, it was obvious that James could short circuit the endless ego-encrusted comments from other people. City employees were no longer pacing in the hallway, waiting for their items to come up or staring at their phones. And of course, he saved me time too, because the schedule more closely resembled what was going to happen and in fact did happen. I became a fan and forgot about the flag waving completely. James's focus on fiscal responsibility was evident in how he ran meetings. He was conserving everyone's time and the city's money. I learned a great deal about the search for common ground by watching James Rogers over the years. Most importantly, I have to look for common ground when I don't expect to find it. And it is possible to trim the ego-inflated discourse of others without being rude. And it is possible to save time without cutting corners. And there's no need to walk back a decision if you did your homework in the first place. Finally, instead of a politician's ambiguous, well, maybe, it is possible to move on efficiently. It has been an honor to know that James was reading my messages and listening to my comments. They were part of his deliberations, even if I could not recognize them in his decisions. What more could I ask from a representative form of government? And that, of course, is coming full circle back to the flag waving. I want to express my deepest thanks to former council member James Rogers for representing District 1 and me. Thank you.
Okay, and then next we will hear from George Chapman. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay, Cindy is absolutely, James Rogers has been amazing. I agree with Polly Hart. You all deserve a thank you for all the time and effort. I know it's been a lot harder than any of you expected, but I still want more. You know me, I will always want more. So I have 3 other comments. The biggest crime is a visible police officer, and walking park patrols shouldn't require voluntary overtime. I remember how excited the mayor was for 1 minute the park walking police patrols were recommended. So it's a sad commentary if the first exposure to a cop is during a crime. Walking park police patrols are desperately needed and should be a priority. Parks are so dangerous now that police have to close restrooms. And on the second item, responsible, respectful traffic calming should be a basic city service. But traffic calming doesn't always work. The 500 East major screw up that increased pollution slowed buses to a crawl, spewing NOx, and sent cars speeding on 400 East. That increased pollution in unsafe neighborhood streets. That was wrong. And finally, the 900 East shared path being built next to Forestdale Golf Course is the most dangerous bike lane I've ever seen. It will increase accidents by bikes and even pedestrians with a dangerous slope. And here's where I'm going to get your attention. It could easily turn over strollers, which could babies being thrown in front of and run over by bicycles. I hope that gets your attention, and I hope it's changed. Thank you for listening.
Okay, and that was our final commenter this evening.
Thank you for everyone who commented. And we will be doing a little celebration for James at a future council meeting. And Cindy, I got away with like not crying that much until your comment, and then I lost it. So with that, we are moving on to our new business. Item E1 is a motion regarding meeting remotely without an anchor location. So I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we ratify your decision to continue to meet remotely without an anchor location due to the ongoing threat of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Mono. Roll call, Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. Our next item is the nomination of our vice chair for calendar year 2021. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we appoint Councilmember Chris Wharton as the vice chair.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Roll call, Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Chris. Our last business new business item is approving a resolution confirming Council Member Ferris's appointment to the Utah Inland Port Authority Board. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we appoint Councilmember Ferris as the Utah Inland Port Board Authority representative from Salt Lake City.
I think that will work. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Mono, second from Councilmember Wharton. Roll call, Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
And I am a yes, but that passes unanimously. This brings us to unfinished business, item F1, the ordinance budget amendment number 2 for fiscal year 2021-2022. I will look for a motion.
Move for approval. Oh, sorry. I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the FY 2021-2022 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document as shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll call, Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. Last, we are at section G, the consent portion of our agenda. I'll look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll call, Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. And unless I have missed anything on our agenda, which sometimes I do, this meeting is adjourned, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight.
Thank you very much, everyone.